All right, so hi everyone. Thanks so much for inviting me. It's lovely to see what everyone else is doing and to be invited. Hopefully you'll know a bit more about what we do and potentially maybe there even be some chance for collaboration or for information sharing. So I'm Fergus. I'm the training and development officer over here at AMIS. Um, so who are AMIS? We're one of the only dedicated support services for male victims of domestic abuse. We also speak to friends and family members of victims. Quite often we get calls from concerned parents asking what more they can do to help their kids. And obviously it's a really difficult conversation to have, but necessary, you know. Um, so kind of within the support, it's primarily a telephone helpline and also an email support service, and that allows us to cover the whole of Scotland. Um, we did used to offer face-to-face support. We had a office based in Edinburgh, but obviously during COVID, we had to close that down, and we've just never been able to reopen. It's good and bad being primarily online. We'd love to be able to offer face-to-face support, but at the same time, a lot of the people are talking about really sensitive stuff, and they need a bit of anonymity. And I feel like they get that through talking to the phone. You know, there's a wee bit of separation, and it also allows us to speak to people who are in like rural communities who can't make the travel to Edinburgh and speak to someone directly. So we also do a lot of training and awareness raising. We go around and speak to, schools, colleges, universities, different organizations, go to different events. Really, anyone that'll listen, we're out there, talking the ear off them and getting them to know about what we do and raising the profile of male victims. Uh, we're also focusing really heavily on speaking with young people, so kind of talking them through, what is a healthy relationship? What does that look like? And you know, letting them know that there's support available if they find themselves in an unhealthy relationship. So within the support, risk assessments and safety planning is obviously it's really key. Safety needs to be the priority, especially if they're still living with the perpetrator of abuse. And some of the suggestions that we can make are pretty simple, like things like keeping a bag of essentials ready to go in case they need to leave in a hurry. So it might be, a bit of money, a few changes of clothes, and some ID, just so they can pick it up and go, and they'll be safe. We also do a wee bit of advocacy work depending on the individual situation. We're a small charity and we're covering the whole of Scotland. There's only 7 of us, so it's definitely something we'd want to do more in the future. So how many people do we support? So we get around 1,400 contacts a year. About 450 are first-time contacts, and then at any given time we'll hold about a caseload of 350 people. So that'll be people calling in weekly, bi-weekly, or just kind of whenever they need to chat, really. Um, so I feel like it's kind of necessary to talk about like the whole scope of the issue rather than just the people we support. Um, so we know from statistics from Police Scotland that they get that of the domestic abuse incidents that they go to, around about 18% will involve a male victim, and that's like 10 to 12,000 people every year in Scotland, and only about 600 of them are actually getting support afterwards. So a massive difference in the total number of victims and then the amount that are actually getting help. Uh, So yeah, we're hoping to be able to offer like local face-to-face support. We're in the process of setting up like a local hero volunteer project, so bringing people in from different communities and getting them involved in training, awareness raising, fundraising, all these different kinds of things to hopefully support their local community. And we also help clients to access safe accommodation. There's actually no refuges for male victims of domestic abuse in Scotland. We've had we've had clients actually move down to England to access refuge accommodation, which is quite a crazy thing to think about, like people uprooting their entire life and moving to a different country. to access accommodation that should really be available here. And we also talk with, other professionals, other organisations working with and for men to see if there's any chance for collaboration or if they need any specific support with dealing with domestic abuse. Oh, yeah. The impact. So what is the impact for men? Um, Probably the biggest role we play is on their mental health. We find that more or less every person we talk to about domestic abuse will need some kind of mental health support and some kind of emotional support throughout. And that's just because it's so difficult to talk about and it's so stigmatizing for them. And just to kind of build on that, like victims of domestic abuse, they're more likely to suffer depression, anxiety, even PTSD in really extreme cases, and it's lifelong effects that these things can have. So we need to be really, really mindful of dealing with mental health in a proper way. And also physical health as well. And I'm not really talking about like the effects of physical abuse. I'm talking more so like health behaviours, so like smoking, drinking, alcohol, drug use, all of these kinds of things, much more likely to happen to victims of domestic abuse just because of the stress, really. And that stress can also cause like long-term chronic health issues. And obviously it's this stress, and it's also like a lack of sleep. So mental and physical health is really, 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 really impacted for male victims of domestic abuse. And another thing we see is contact with their children seriously disaffected. A lot of the guys we talk to haven't seen their kids for months, years even. And it's also really, really stressful to go through child residency disputes and expensive, especially if there's been like financial abuse within the relationship. These people don't have any money, and they essentially they've got no contact with their children and no chance of getting contact with their children because they can't afford a solicitor. And false allegations are another massive challenge for men. Even like the threat of false allegations, that's one of the ways that stop men coming forward and actually talking about being a victim of domestic abuse is because their partner will say, if you come forward, I'll say you're the perpetrator, and they'll believe me because I'm a woman and you're a man. So it kind of plays on that idea that like gendered expectations within the relationship, and people don't really see guys as victims. And another really, really difficult one is homelessness. I was mentioning earlier that there's no refuges for male victims in Scotland. And what quite often happens is that they'll end up in emergency accommodation, and it'll be like a hostel usually. And it's good, at least it gives them a roof over their head, but at the same time they might have kids that they want to take with them. They might have other issues going on in their life, like drug or alcohol dependency. They might have, disabilities. So it's sending them to a hostel isn't really a place where they can start to actually rebuild their life, which is what they need, really. And I think that's actually me. There's the contact information. If anyone has any questions or wants to speak about it a bit more or get some more information, please feel free to reach out. I'll stick my email address in the chat, and hopefully you can all get hold of me.